Bam. There's about a 10 to 15 second delay from when I say bam to when the actual bam happens. You'll have to forgive me, and my listeners know this. I try to speak slow and steady sometimes. That's like the voice that people find pleasant, but I get excited during podcasts or talking about calisthenics or just anything. And so then I start speeding up, but I will try to slow down a little bit. You can let me know if you don't understand me. Looks like we are live. I'll pull it up on my phone. If anyone is watching right now, or for those of you streaming later on when we're not live, we usually go live a couple of minutes before the actual recording. So just stick with us, or you can skip this a little part. We're going to post a promotional material, but we're really excited to have you here. Okay, we're posted. Is there anything that you want to post? You wanted to do something?
Oh,
Instagram, I think.
Yes, I have. Yes. I have all the technology around me, and I'm just like,
Yeah. I know how you feel. Well, I used to do IT work, and I used to fix computers and phones, but I still get stumped by this sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a young boomer.
Young boomer. All right, let's see.
Have a link. And I'll as well.
Okay.
Okay. We have a couple of people in here. If you're watching live, say hi so we know you're here. And we are operating with a bit of a delay, so if there is, if you see a delay, it's okay. We're still hearing you. I can still see all the questions. We'll just work through it. 5 people here. They're just joining. Okay, are you ready to start?
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's record cloud. It's connecting. Taking its time today. Okay, we are recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hybrid Calisthenics Podcast number 9 with health coach Christi Brown of Intuitively Strong. This one has been pretty hyped, and I started posting a little bit of promotional material, and lots of people were excited. They shared the post. They told their friends, and diet and nutrition is obviously a big topic. So hopefully we can answer some questions here and just have a lot of fun. Christi, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Hampton. This is awesome.
I will say we are operating with a bit of a delay. So if you hear a little bit of delay between my question and her response, that is why. But we're still getting all the information, which is what's important. So thank you for bearing with us. Send us lots of questions if you're watching this live. And we're just going to start, Christi. So your business and your brand is Intuitively Strong. And I believe that revolves around intuitive eating. Can you tell us a little bit more about what intuitive eating is?
Yes. So a lot of people have this question and this assumption of what it is. And basically, intuitive eating, balanced eating, food freedom, whatever you want to call it, it's basically the act of eating on your instincts. it's instinctively eating. So you don't have a diet plan to follow. You don't have a meal plan to follow. You don't have a list of restricted or non-restricted foods. You literally eat based off of the signals of your body. So that's where this plays in. That's why I feel like it's such a superpower to have you and I together here, because on the calisthenics end and then on the food freedom end here, we can like really combine to make the most like empowered and intuitive person, which is amazing.
So I really like that. But just to clarify for someone that may be confused, is there a difference between intuitive eating and right now just telling someone go eat whatever you want?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Hampton. So honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, my first impression of intuitive eating was that's not healthy. Like you're going to tell me I have full permission on all food to eat whatever I want, whenever I want. Like that's not healthy. And that's the exact mindset that we're going to get out of. So our entire lives, we've been like drenched in diet culture. It's like messages that tell us to get smaller, thinner, leaner, stronger. And it like good luck if your body is the right trend of the season, right? So what we do is in this world, we basically give you that full permission on all foods, because right now, my guess is a lot of the listeners listening right now have these foods up on pedestals, right? Like bread and cake and cookies and donuts and all these foods. And when you put them up on this pedestal, you glorify them. And now they become like this big, shiny object. And then you get big, shiny object syndrome of, I can't have it, but I want it so bad. I can't have it. I want it so bad. And what you resist will persist. So by taking those foods down from their pedestals and making them like any other food, you know, it takes away that power that these foods hold over us. So if you're scared to keep cookies in your pantry, or if you're scared to keep ice cream in the house, that's what we do. We release that tension and anxiety around food and make food just food. So you can literally have a plate of cookies or brownies sitting in your house, and you could either take them or leave them. Like you don't have to have one, or you could have one, or you could have just a bite. Most of us can't have those in our house because we have them on the pedestals. And if they're in the house, we should get rid of them. We should eat them all now. And we should eat them all before Monday hits, because Monday the diet starts again. So it's like this vicious cycle that we have with food.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you're kind of saying that the way that we picture quote unhealthy foods in our minds is almost like idol worship or the forbidden fruit, and the more you are not allowed to have it, the more you want it.
Exactly.
That's really cool. And I know a little bit about your story, and you sent me an email, and I really liked it. Can you tell me a little bit more about your story that led you to intuitive eating? You used to be a bodybuilder, correct?
Yes. I have such a crazy story, but I feel like almost everybody can relate to it. So if you can relate to this, like hit me up in the comments, like hit a comment, like, yes, that's me, because I bet you there's something in here that's going to ring a bell. And what Hampton's talking about, the email, is in my, when you sign up to join my email list, you get these emails, and this one tells a little bit about me and my background. So I used to be a former athlete. I was a high school athlete, a college athlete. I've been an athlete my entire life. And after school, I kind of lived that 20s life where I just like ate and drank and didn't take care of myself at all, which is what most people think intuitive eating is, but that's not what it is at all. I had no self-care in my life. So then in my late 20s, I started to take up bodybuilding. I wanted to get that competitiveness back into my life. I think every athlete knows, like, we have this inside of us that we just have to keep like competing in something or going for a goal somewhere. So I decided to take up bodybuilding, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved the growth. I loved everything about it. And I will say this all the time, that it wasn't bodybuilding that got me into this like terrible world of eating disorders and of body dysmorphia, things like that. I had that before this happened, but after I competed with bodybuilding, it accentuated that, because once I hit that goal, like, and that's why I'm so big on journeys, like, take everything as a journey, like enjoy the journey, because the goal, the destination, once you hit it, it goes away. So you have to keep like going for something else and keep climbing those mountains, those different mountains that you might have. And so once I took up bodybuilding, that became my identity. And now people were looking at me like, wow, Christi, you lost so much weight. You're so lean. And in my world, if I lost that identity, then it meant that I lost myself. It meant that people wouldn't love me anymore. It meant they wouldn't like me anymore. I didn't want to be considered the person that gave up on herself because I gained some weight. You know, I just wanted to be an asset to people. So, and I think everyone has this within us. Like, we just want to become that person that everybody knows, loves, and adores. And I took that to heart, and I took that on as, well, my identity is that if I'm not lean, if I'm not muscular, if I'm not knowing how to do every exercise or knowing all the nutrition and the exact macros on how I got here, then I won't be loved anymore. So that's a deep introspection in my head. It took me a while to get to that place and to actually understand it and unfold it. But that's what was lying deep underneath. But when I didn't know what was going on, I had to keep that body at all costs. So I started to develop, my eating disorders got worse. I started to have a severe anxiety around food, around going out to eat. I couldn't go out to eat without wondering, like, oh my gosh, is the chef gonna put oil on my chicken or on my broccoli? And, you know, if we were going out and having pizza one night and beer, it was severe anxiety around that. Okay, I got to go work out extra tomorrow. I got to burn off all these calories. I can't be seen, you know, throwing up in the bathroom after this. It's like extreme, like, anxiety around food and my body and keeping it that certain space. So I knew that this started getting really bad and really serious because it wouldn't stop. It was years of this ongoing. And my mental health was just terrible at this point because everything was so outwardly focused and I wasn't nurturing anything on the inside. So I knew something was going on. I knew I had to get help, and I actually sought out a coach. And she helped me through this. She got me through this. And it was one of those things where I was on my last straw. Like, I'm going to be completely honest with you here, Hampton, and with the listeners and everybody. My tipping point in this was when I have two little boys, ages 2 and 4, was when I was with both of them one day, and I had just eaten so much food. I binge ate because that's what I did. I restricted during the week, and then I would binge on the weekends. And then I had eating disorders like bulimia. So I would go throw up afterwards, which was awful. Oh. Well, right as I was doing that, I heard my son pitter patter in, and I had to lie to him and tell him that I was just sick, and my heart broke. And I'm I getting teared up just even thinking about this, because I'm like, right. I don't want him to see mom like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so much more than that. And at that point, it just broke me down, and I had to say, okay, I need help. So I sought out a coach and got so empowered by this whole entire movement of what's going on, because this is going to start taking over the world soon, of undieting. And I got so empowered by it that I just had to teach it to others. So now, while I was healing my relationship with food, I actually created my course that I put my clients through. So it's I am now helping women with the same issues, with the body dysmorphia, not feeling good enough in your own skin. And especially moms, especially athletes, it's just, athletes especially have the highest percentage rates of body dysmorphia and of eating disorders. And I want to start just bringing this to light.
Wow. No, thank you very much for that.
So much. It's a lot. It's a little deep too, so deep.
No, it was good. And I mean, I think the way Zoom calls work is it focuses on whoever's speaking. So she was speaking the whole time and you couldn't see me, which in my opinion is good. But you were but I usually check my phone and look at questions to ask next, but I really was just intently listening, because the way she told that story, I mean, you probably told it a few times now at least. I am neither female nor a bodybuilder, but yet she made me relate to her, and it really made me think and understand the thought process of someone going through this. And I really empathize with you, and I think you're very brave for going through that. And I think it's a great idea to use your experience to help others, because that's what we all should do, really. Now,
absolutely.
Just to touch upon this, because
Mhm.
Listening upon this was one of my first questions, and I'm sure some other people have the same question. Is you mentioned the diligence and the discipline required to go into bodybuilding, and you mentioned that you don't hate bodybuilding. They just don't hate it as a discipline. How does one, if they are an athlete, either a bodybuilder or something else, how do they apply the diligence and the discipline without following through the same bad habits that took you down?
I love that you asked that, Hampton. Like, to me, this was like my life's journey, my whole entire reason of why I wanted to go into this. Because at first, when I started my business, I'm like, how do I bridge the gap? Like, how do I bridge fitness with like intuitive eating and food freedom? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. Luckily, I am a person who loves it when two things don't mix. Like, I started off bodybuilding, like a lot of the reason was because, hey, I'm a woman building muscle on my body. And that wasn't back then, that wasn't like a big thing like it is now. So I wanted to be the different one in that. I wanted to combine the two things that didn't fit together. Um, I've always been like that. And I love that I'm like that because I feel like I can find that connection. And there is a connection here. I firmly believe, Hampton, like with all of my heart, that athletes and former athletes can make the best intuitive eaters. Like, you have the upper hand here 100% over anybody else. It
Hmm.
is harder for you. And you will go through so many ups and downs. Like, this line is not straight. You will go through so many. But I actually have my Bridging the Gap YouTube fitness channel on my YouTube because I wanted to show how to bridge this gap. So I believe that you should put yourself through some kind of struggle every day. I believe that within struggle, there is growth. I believe that through the hard things, by looking your fears in the face, you are growing. You are like becoming a new person. And I think you have to do a little bit of that every day. And it doesn't have to be like something crazy huge, like I'm going to go jump off a bridge, you know? But to me, that's where bodybuilding is. Like, I love to push myself in bodybuilding. I love to lift more weight each time. I like to build on my strength. And, something I didn't mention in there before. So right before 2.5 months before I went into bodybuilding, I actually had a hip replacement. So 2.5 months after that, I started training for my first competition. So for me, it's like, you can't keep me down. Like, I think all of us athletes, we have that within us. This like, just, oh, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be first place. I'm going to just win. I'm going to do everything. So we have the heart, we have this spirit, we have like this lion heart that we're just like, oh, I want to just conquer the world. But we also have this like form of, hey, I don't want it to be so restrictive that I'm losing my life, to where I'm not enjoying dinner out with friends because I'm so worried about what's on my plate or what's going to go in my mouth. So how I bridge the gap between fitness and between this food freedom world is through like thinking that, okay, I'm going to go hard and balance today. Like, I'm going to go hard in nourishing my body, and I'm going to go so hard in giving my mind what it wants, because that's what it is. We're combining that nourishment and that satisfaction. And that's what creates our meals, because we have to nourish our bodies. We have to give our bodies what they need, vitamins, a lot of plant-based foods, a lot of whole foods, but we also have to give our mind the satisfaction that it needs. If you ever are like craving like something like a Cinnabon or something, and your mind won't stop thinking about it until you get it. And so you have to kind of combine both of those. Now that's up to you where you want to go with that. If you want to just like go in, like, I'm just going to get a bite of this, or have the whole thing, that's up to you. But I believe there is that bridge of, I can go hard. I can work out until like, I'm just like busting at the seams, but I can also go enjoy my food. Like, my thing is to go hard and balance. Like, you can still go hard there. And to me, balance is one of the hardest things to do, because I've been on bodybuilding prep, and especially like they call it peak week. It's the week right before your show, where you are like dehydrated, you are malnourished. Like, I mean, you are just like nothing, because you're trying to dry out and to make your muscles pop and your veins pop a little bit more. And there's a specific way to do that. But within that, like, to me, that was easier than, oh, I can have a little bit of this and a little bit of this. Like, balance to me is the hardest thing. And I think most people on here, you can agree, like, balance is so difficult. So That's how I do it, Hampton.
No, that was really just knocking these out. And just to summarize at the beginning, so I heard was you want to push yourself, but you also want to love yourself at the same time.
Yes.
That's really cool. Just real quick, and I know we're having a little bit more delay now. It was gone for a second, but I'm still hearing everything you say. Is there a difference? I've wondered this between female bodybuilding and male bodybuilding.
I'm so sorry. You said between bodybuilding and what?
Oh, sorry, female bodybuilding and male bodybuilding.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I think it's my internet. I think my internet's like not that great.
Oh, okay. It's okay. Hear me a little bit.
A little bit. I'm looking on the comments to see if anybody had said anything on there. I'm so sorry, you guys. It might be my internet. I apologize. But Hampton, if you can hear me, it's my biggest thing is that I like definitely like believe in self-care. So to me, self-care is your way to health, if that makes sense.
Right. Have a bit of an issue here. I just heard you. Can you hear me? I know I blinked for a minute. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
In case to me, I'm going to close some things here, but you answered the question for our viewers yet or not. But my question was, it was just out of my own curiosity.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between how a female bodybuilder works and a male bodybuilder?
Oh, so yes, because especially there's different categories too. So there's a lot of, within the bodybuilding world. So men and women do have to prep stuff like differently because, and it's all about body type too. Like I have a body where I personally like gain more fat on my body, but I also gain more muscle. And I have a friend so I had to do a lot more cardio in mine. And then I had a male friend who had he was actually somebody who needed to gain more muscle. So he was more on the bodybuilding end. He actually had to work out more and do less cardio. And then especially with the fitness world, it depends on where you're at. I mean, even from male to female, but also from female to female, like that is completely based on your body type, how your body works. There's a lot of special nutrition that goes into that. And I would definitely, if somebody is looking into going to bodybuilding, recommend a coach that specializes in that, because do not do it on your own. It is like the craziest up and down of nutrition and how you have to basically like submerge yourself in like gallons of water a day, and then you suddenly cut water. Like there's a total math secret to that too. And then afterwards, like my bread and butter of who I love to work with are former athletes, because I believe as former athletes, like I said, we have the upper hand in this. We know how to be healthy. We know how to really like we know how to put our bodies into that struggle. We know how to do this, but we struggle with almost too much routine, too much of that. I have to do it now. So my goal is to kind of like get you into this balance of like between go hard, like just at all costs, do whatever you can, and of the like completely lack of self-care and bring you right into the middle. So I'm like, basically, I want to help people live that balanced life again. I want to help you live that sustainable life. Like if you're looking to drop 20 pounds, I'm not your girl. Like real quick, I won't do it, because I know where that leads. I've done it before. And I used to be a macro coach. So I used to coach people on macros and how to do it. And then I always was wondering why can't you stick to this? And I would lose people left and right, but they would always come back to me. And I can tell you right now, I couldn't even stick to those plans. Like I couldn't even stick to them. And I know where people fall from here, because it's like you all of a sudden start thinking that your body is your identity. And like, if I get bigger, if I gain weight, if I don't lose this fat on my stomach, then people won't love me anymore. They won't like me anymore. They won't appreciate me anymore. And it's what I do is I get people out of that mindset, because you are so much more than your body. And once you start using self-care as a form of health, that's when things start to change.
Absolutely. I really like that idea. And I mean, I think it's interesting that you say that if you want to lose 20 pounds, I'm not your person. I'm not your girl. So, but if someone, so would you frame it more as I will help you be healthy and mend your relationship with food? And if you happen to lose weight, that's cool, but it's a side effect of the health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's like the perfect way, because honestly, I can't tell you when you come work with me, like Hampton, I couldn't tell you if you're going to gain weight or lose weight. I can't do it, because my goal isn't to change your body. I don't want a physical transformation for you. I want a mental one. Like, I want you to be able to look in the mirror, and instead of looking at all the things that you hate on your body, I want you to say, hell yes, I am empowered by this body. I can walk out of here, because even though, and this is why I believe that, sorry, my
It's okay.
things all weird. Even though I believe in body autonomy, which means if you want to look like this or do this or weigh this amount, like, you do whatever you want to do. But when it becomes unhealthy mentally, like, you cannot have physical health without mental health. You can work out all day long, you can lose all the weight you want, but it will never fix what's going on up here. And that's what we do. We work on this. And the reason why I don't focus on weight loss, because I actually help you find your ideal body. Because when you're working out for nourishment for your body, when you're working out because it feels good, not because you have to burn calories, when you're eating because you want to nourish your body, and when you're bringing in that satisfaction into it too, and pleasing your mind as well, when you're eating with no guilt or shame attached to it, when you're eating by your hunger, not by the clock, is when you will find your ideal body. And I can't tell you what that's going to look like, but I can tell you you're going to be a hell of a lot happier.
Right. I really like that. And I'm sorry if I'm not adding enough to this, because I really think that she's really phrasing these very well. Usually when I find a topic that I agree with, I go on and I talk a lot about it, but she's phrasing these so well. So don't take my my lack of word count as disagreement, because I certainly like it. So that's kind of like setting someone up for long-term success as well, because a lot of diets are so extreme that people can only tolerate them for like 7 days, 14 days, even a week. Whereas if you change their mindset, you want to help them be healthy for life. Am I correct?
That is so right, Hampton. Honestly, like, my biggest thing is I think my ideal clients are chronic dieters. We're the people, because I've been there, done that. Like, all right, what's the new diet? I've tried all of them. And then you're wondering why you can't stick to it. And you think it's your willpower, but really it's your primal biological brain that's like a billion years old. You know, we still, our brains still think that there's a saber-toothed tiger hiding in the bushes. Like, to us, if we think that a food is scarce, like if we think, oh, donuts, we can't have donuts, our mind is going to go to, got to find donuts, got to find donuts. Like, in the first thing we see, if we see donuts, we're going to eat them all, because our mind is saying, we don't know when we're going to get this next, so we might as well eat it all now. And then it's the same with our bodies. Like, our bodies, you know, our brains are still so primal that we want to fit into the culture, to the norm, that, you know, our bodies think, you know, our minds start thinking, okay, well, if we don't fit into the cultural norm, then we're going to get kicked out of our tribes, which back in the day, getting kicked out of your tribes meant you were isolated. You can't survive on your own. You know, you need a community to survive with. So that's why this goes so much deeper than the food. A lot of people think, oh, I just binge eat, or I overeat, or I do this, but there's an underlying reason and issue that you do that. Every emotion and every trigger that you have is your messenger. And my goal is, what I do is I help you stare into those uncomfortable feelings, those feelings of inadequacy and of hopelessness and of not being enough. And we actually walk into those fears and we say, okay, let's dance. Why are you here? Let's talk. Instead of using coping mechanisms like food to numb those feelings with. So it's powerful.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. These are great answers. Now, the next one, I have two things. It's a twofer. And if they're related, because I kind of think they are, then feel free to answer them together. If not, just pick one and you can run with it. I think the logical question is intuitive eating. How does one start? Another one is, how do I eliminate the unhealthy cravings? So the bad stuff that you want to get out of your diet.
Yes. So first of all, I mean, clearly I had a coach. I am a coach. I do still have a coach. I believe in coaches. To me, I couldn't have gotten through this without one. I tried it on my own. The first time I stepped into this, I was like, nope, I gained 3 pounds. I can't do it. I'm out. And it was because the scale was still my progress marker. So when we take away that scale as your progress marker, now what do you have? Like, what is your new progress marker? What means you're moving forward? And that's something else we kind of go through and we say, okay, well, this is going to be my new progress marker. Not eating an entire bag of popcorn before I go to bed is going to be my new progress marker. Maybe I can have a little bit of it. And then still feel good afterwards, because the whole point of intuitive eating and food freedom is to eat based on how you want to feel. Like, you don't want to feel like crap. So you're not going to, you might at first, like when you have full permission, like, yeah, think about it. Like when you weren't able to have something for so long and then now all of a sudden you're going to eat it. But what I tell my clients too is that, like, okay, so let's say you guys order pizza, right? We've all done this, and then you have some left over. So like 3 nights in a row, you're like, oh, let's have pizza. And the second night you're like, okay, let's have pizza again. It's left over. And then you're like, okay, let's have more pizza. And you're like, I'm good. Like, I've had pizza too many times. You're going to get to that point to where that food is going to come down from its pedestal, but don't go on another diet and put it back up there. And what I tell my clients with, like, to start this, if they don't want to start with a coach yet, they're still unsure. There's so many great books out there that you can kind of really like dive deep into. The intuitive eating book by the 2 dietitians who created this is phenomenal. I think it's wonderful. There's the Goddess Revolution is wonderful too. That's another one. And then, follow people like me, follow the hashtag intuitive eating or food freedom, and just kind of get a feel of what this is, because it's scary. It's very scary coming from someone who, I understand those feelings of fear of what if I don't like the outcome of, my ideal body when I get through this. But my question to you is, how would you ever know until you try it? Like, how do you know where your ideal body lies unless you try this? So try it out. If you don't like it, you can always go back on another diet. But, and then what I tell people with, to stop the binging and the overeating and the eating bad foods and things like that. First, I don't like to label foods as good or bad, because that in turn will label you as good or bad. So if I eat this bad food, I now become a bad person. And if I eat this unhealthy food, then I now become this unhealthy person. So my food, I label it as more nourishing or less nourishing. So yeah, this is more nourishing and this is less nourishing. My goal is, and I actually did this with a client once. She could not stop eating M&Ms, like could not stop eating them. She's like, I cannot stop. I don't know what to do. So at every meal, I had her take like a little handful. And I'm like, I want you to have M&Ms with every single meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And she's like, just try. So she did. And that ended up taking the edge off of it. It ended up taking that like sexiness away from it, right? Because now it's here at every meal. And it's like, oh, it's these again. Oh my gosh, M&Ms again. And if you have to do that, if you have to take that like little bit of satisfaction at every meal, do it. Like, start taking down those foods from their pedestals, because the more that you neutralize these foods, the more just like completely normal they're going to be around you. So hope that helps.
No, that really helps. Just to summarize, for some people that are tuning in, to start, you recommend finding an intuitive eating coach. And as far as how to eliminate unhealthy cravings, what I got was stop putting certain foods on a pedestal and normalize them. It's okay to have them every once in a while, as long as you stop idol worshiping them in your mind. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We're just like taking that tension away. We're taking that anxiety away from the food, because food has no morals. Food is neither good nor bad. Food is just food.
Absolutely. I like that. I'm going to ask you some questions that I got from some of our audience members.
Yeah.
Someone said, do you fast?
I do not personally. I have tried intermittent fasting. I have tried it all. For me, it wasn't sustainable. And when I say I am personally looking for something sustainable. And I think most people are. Like, think about it. The end goal of every diet is sustainability. The end goal of every diet is intuitive eating, right? So after you go on Whole30 and all that, the end goal is, yeah, but then start slowly adding those foods back in. So we're basically skipping that dieting part that's putting us in all that restriction. Oh my gosh, what was the question again, Hampton? I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Do you fast?
Do it fast. Yes. Thank you. I got on a tangent there. So my whole thing is, if it's not sustainable for 10 years, don't do it. You have to be able to stick with this for 10 years. So if you're a person who fasts and I love brunch. Like, we go out to brunch. Well, we used to before the virus hit. We went out to brunch with our friends so much. And, it's, I love it. And to say that I couldn't do that anymore, I could go, but just not eat with them, that wouldn't make me happy. Like, mentally, I would always just start to resent brunch, and I would resent the people around me eating because I couldn't. And then fasting, if you fast, and can't eat later at night, like, I would miss out on, all of our friends' weddings. I could still go, but I wouldn't really fully get that experience and enjoy it. So my ask to you is, if it works for you, great. By all means, do it. Like, we're all different. Intuitive eating and food freedom is not going to be for everyone. But for those who have tried everything and nothing's sticking, I think this is going to be it. So fasting, I think it's useful. I think it's something that people do for moral reasons as well, religious reasons, which is phenomenal. But you do you. And I say do what feels good.
Right. I really like that. And I like the idea of how you said, if it works for you and it's sustainable for you, that's the thing you should go with. Just to give some perspective on me, because some people ask me as well, I actually do intermittent fasting, but it was something I always did since a kid. I before I knew it was called intermittent fasting. For me, it's just called eating. Okay, it's just how I normally eat. I like to get up. I like to do things before I actually eat. But however, I think you mentioned a very important point where there's a certain form of rigidity that's not good. For example, if I'm going out with some friends, I wouldn't resent them for eating. I would just eat. On most days with intermittent fasting, as a result of that just being what I naturally want. But if it ever came for me to eat socially with some friends, to me, that's okay. And that's always worked okay for me.
And that's that balance that you have there. Like, this is where I think a lot of people get confused, because that is not your identity. You are not an intermittent faster. That is what you do, but that's not who you are. And I think some people, and I got stuck in well, no, I am a health and fitness professional, so I have to do this. This is my identity. If I don't, people will see me not eating healthy, and they will see me eating bad foods, and I'll become bad. So when you take it on as your identity, which you have not, I think it can be totally sustainable if it works for you. And if it's something you've done your whole life, I mean, my gosh, then yes, that's totally normal and it's natural for you. For you, that is intuitive.
Right, absolutely. And I'm going to bring this up now. It's actually at the end of my list because I wrote it down and at the end, but she just popped in the chat. It's Joanna. Hello, Joanna. And she was the one who asked, do you eat 100% plant-based? If not, what is your reasoning for why not?
So I do not eat 100% plant-based because I do love all foods. I love some processed foods. I love me some, like, Chips Ahoy cookies in the sleeve, like the chewy kind. I actually really like those. Call me crazy. I think the Kraft brand macaroni and cheese is like one of my favorites, and I absolutely love it. But I also love roasted vegetables, and I also love kale, and I love spinach. I am in love with Brussels sprouts. Like, I think they're the most amazing things on the face of the earth. I don't have any discrimination on any foods. I was orthorexic at one point, which for the people that don't know what that is, orthorexia is when you can only eat whole foods, organic foods, like you are like obsessed with only eating healthy, organic, non-processed, come from the earth or animals foods. And that really put me into a restriction. It put me into like non-sustainability, and I had anxiety around it when I didn't have those foods. So when we went out to eat, if we went out to a place that wasn't like organic or clean or, you know, farm raised or anything like that, it really got to me and I would have severe anxiety around it. So I think if you're 100% plant-based, that's totally fine. But if it's something that's going to cause you mental issues, if it's going to cause like freak out moments, panic attacks, depression or guilt or shame for eating those foods when, you know, you're not able to get to those foods, then I would rethink it, just because there is some form of restriction in there for you. And, you know, plant-based is wonderful. I think it does. When I say nourish your body, a lot of my food is plant-based, but I eat processed foods as well. So I think it's just, I listen to my body, and when my body says, okay, like that's good, I'm good on that, then that's fine. Because I've also had clients that have eaten so healthy that they would overeat on, like, they were so craving cookies, right? And so they wouldn't make cookies, but they would make like these chickpea cookies with like, I forgot what was in them. It was like chickpeas and something else and banana and something else. And she'd make these cookies. She ate 2 dozen of them because she was just like, I wanted cookies, but she wasn't fulfilling her actual need for a cookie. She was using like a pseudo cookie to do that. So you can still gain weight and, you know, be unhealthy with healthy foods.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I understand that this is not somewhere you want to step, so it's okay if we just want to move on. But I know you bringing that up and the way you phrase that, and I have some vegan followers, and I know it's going to pop up in their mind, where you mentioned a lot about the health benefits of plant-based. But if someone is eating plant-based for, say, moral or maybe religious reasons, what would you say to that? Is it okay to lean into that?
Go for it, like 100%. I think the people who are true vegans that do it for moral reasons, that do it for reasons like that, like, you're amazing. I think that's awesome. I think veganism is wonderful. I think the health and fitness industry took it over and kind of gave it a bad name, to tell you the truth, as like a diet. And I think if you're doing it for those reasons, obviously religious reasons, whatever that is, like, my gosh, that's amazing. It's just like, you know, to me, fitness and nutrition has become a religion. It's like, even if, let's say, we believe in the same thing, I might view it a different way, or I might have different feelings on it. And I think that's okay. Like, I have friends with different political views than me, and I still love them. I don't love you because you're vegan. I don't love you because you're a Republican or a Democrat. I love you because you're you. Like, you do you. I want you to be you, because I don't need another me in this world. I need you in this world, and I need you to be at your most authentic self. So I think that's absolutely amazing. People that are vegans for that reason.
And you actually brought up a very interesting thought, which you mentioned earlier and you touched upon, which is the social aspect. What if someone, you know, is on the face of it vegan for moral and ethical or religious reasons, and all their friends are that, and they are afraid of being ostracized if they change their diet?
I actually had a client in the same predicament. It's so crazy. You just said that. She was like, she was vegan, and I'm sorry, vegetarian. And her whole other side of the family was, and she goes, I'm actually scared to get out of veganism because I don't know what they're going to say to me, what they're going to think about me. And I'm going to tell you, I feel for you. Like, that is a hard decision to make, because that's not easy. Again, we like feel like we're going to get kicked out of this tribe. We feel like we're going to get talked out about behind our backs. And you know what? That very well may happen. Like, I can't, you know, unfortunately, I wish I had this crystal ball. It'll be like, oh yeah, you're going to be fine. Like, no worries. Like, nobody's going to say anything about you. But more than likely, people don't, how do I put this? People don't like and don't accept what they don't understand. So if they don't know what intuitive eating is or food freedom, they're gonna be like, that's not right, because that's not what I believe in. That goes against everything that I'm trying to do here, which is totally fine. Again, I think it's about autonomy, and I don't hate people that go on diets. I actually think that veganism and vegetarianism. Like, I think it's phenomenal. I think we need more people like that. Like, I honestly love the taste like of like a lot of things. So it's hard for me to step into that arena, but I understand that not everybody likes it, and for different reasons. And like, you do you. I think that's awesome. And for people that are venturing into this world, it's good to have a support system with you that can help you through these tough times. Somebody, luckily she was in my community group that I offer like twice a year. It's like my Courageous Nourisher collective. So there is a lot of girls, women in there that were helping her through this. And she would go on the Facebook group and kind of just say like, hey, I went in today and it was really nerve wracking, and just, get out her feelings. And at that point, if you don't have a support system like that, by all means, like, email me, call me, whatever you need to do. I'm totally here for you. But also start journaling. Like, journaling is one of the things that saved my life. And it sounds so stupid, like, oh, dear diary, today we went outside, it sounds so silly, but you'll start solving your own problems when you start to journal. When you start writing things out, you'll start to say, oh, okay, like, but this is how I can come about that, or do something different. And just remember that you're your own person. Like, you have a voice, and that voice needs to be heard. And if it's not authentic, then it's not you. So it's
Right.
hard. So hard.
I know it is hard. And obviously I can't make a decision for someone else because they live a different life than I do, but I'll tell you what works for me. And what I found is that, like you said, you are not your diet. You are not anything other than yourself. And your friends, if they truly are your friends, should like you for that, in my opinion. I never change myself in that way for my friends or family, in quotes. I find I am always happier long term if I'm true to myself. And if I have some people that, like, it's okay if all your friends are trying vegetarianism or veganism and you're interested and you want to try it out, that's okay. But if it's causing you mental or physical harm or distress, then what I'm going to share is that for me, I'm always happier when I am true to myself. And if some people may not want to be with you, and for me, it is better long term to deal with that and perhaps part with what I would call a fake friend and not real family, than to not be true to yourself, just in my opinion.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. That is 100% it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Moving on to another question. Well, I'll address a couple of the chat questions. Someone asked, "Do you speak Spanish?"
Oh my gosh. Everybody wonders what I am because I have such a weird like mix. I am Mexican and German. So
Huh.
like, crazy weird. I do speak Spanish. I am not phenomenal at it, but I do a little bit. So kudos to you for actually knowing what it was too, who I was.
Wow. I mean, I would not have guessed. I'm
I
not
know
really good
everybody
at
thinks
that.
I'm Middle Eastern or Italian or yeah, but it's yep.
And someone asked, "What is your ethnicity, Hampton?" I identify strongly with everything American. I'm not saying America is perfect, but I was born in America. For me, most I'll have in common with the parents, because this is what my parents are. Just answer that question really quick. And there's a couple of things I'll ignore. Like, this guy called Big Earl says, "Damn, you hot." I'm going to assume that's directed towards me. So thank you, Big Earl. Moving on to another question. No, I mean, if it's something like that, I'm just going to move on past it. But thank you to everyone for asking questions. And so a few people said they related. So great job on your answers. Here's one. This is probably related to, you probably know this from bodybuilding. How do I properly cut weight after bulking to be shredded?
So if you are going down that route, I mean, if you're looking to do that, I would definitely do like a macro counting down to that weight. But my, and that depends. I would hire a macro coach at that point, and I would, to help you with those goals if that's what you want to do. My only concern is, especially in the bodybuilding world and people that are gaining and losing weight, like on a frequent basis, you have to give your metabolism a rest. Like there has to be a point in there where you give it a rest. And any good coach will tell you this, any good macro coach, any good bodybuilding coach, you don't want to stay on it, either like a cut or like a gaining period for too long. It's just not, it's not good. Your body needs to get that, like just reset back in there. So just be careful of that and make sure you do find a coach that knows what they're doing with that metabolism reset, because that's very temperamental if you stay on the wrong path there.
That makes a lot of sense. So a lot of this is if you don't know what you're doing or you're not super experienced in your experience, it's really best to find a coach, someone who does know what they're doing, so you don't go down the wrong path. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, there's so much misinformation out there. And I'm sure you can relate with what you do, Hampton. Like, I mean, you probably just see things and people doing push-ups and you're like, whoa, that form, nope, stop. And, they're teaching it to others. And it's the same thing I view, when people are putting other people on 1,200 calorie diets, and I just like, my mind is just like, that's not enough for my 4-year-old son. Like he eats more than that, he needs more than that. And as grown adults, and especially if you're a teenager or a 20-year-old, my gosh, you need the most calories you'll ever need in your entire life. Like you need the most calories then. So, and especially developing and growing, when you're in your teenage years, you need all these calories. And Hampton, oh my gosh, it kills me when these young 14-year-old girls are messaging me on TikTok. I eat 1,200 calories a day. I work out 5 to 6 days a week. Can you help me lose weight? And I'm like, oh, like it's starting so young now. And I just want to just hug these girls and tell them how worthy they are without this weight loss, because, it hurts my heart, because it's, we listen to this, especially with society and everything that we have with social media and everything going on. It's so hard to be yourself when society is telling you to be someone different.
That makes a lot of sense. And I do kind of I do really feel for people like that. I empathize with them, because it's perhaps easier for some people to say, well, don't let society define who you are. But for other people, like you've mentioned, it's an entire journey. So, but just as a side note for people who watch this and listen to me, I have not studied intuitive eating. I haven't learned with a coach. So, but just to answer the questions that's in some people's minds, I eat whatever I want. I eat whenever I want. So if that provides you any solace, Hampton from Hybrid Calisthenics, he eats whatever he wants. Now, there are a few things that I thought might be addictive, like some overly sugary products that I was like, well, I'll kind of cut them down a little bit. And now I no longer want them. So there was a time period where I was like, maybe I won't eat those jelly beans for me. And now I don't really want them anymore. So, but as a general rule, I do eat whatever I want. I don't exercise when I don't want, just to spin that in a different fitness way. I only exercise when I'm energized. When you're exhausted and you exercise, it could actually harm your body, especially if you're really exhausted. That's when you get sick and you feel good. You feel like Rocky or Naruto, depending on like who your hero is. You feel great, but that's more of a mental thing. And for physical stuff, you should really exercise when you're actually feeling it, in my opinion. We'll move on to.
Oh, I love that, Hampton. That is so true. The exercise alone, like the other day I was doing an exercise and I just was like, I am not feeling it today. Like my body was just not having it. And I literally just stopped in the middle of it. Before then, it would have been like, nope, you go hard, you do it no matter what. And my body thanked me for that rest. The next day, I lifted twice as much. I mean, I was just on a rampage. It was a good rampage. But when your body needs rest, that's the other thing. You start listening. When you start listening intuitively with food, you start listening to your body on a whole other level. And now you're going to realize I need rest today. Self-care today means taking a rest. So I love that you brought that up.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'll ask, just to cover some things, because I know we have some fairly young listeners, and they may be curious. Can you quickly define macronutrients and micronutrients, these terms that you've brought up?
Yes. So Macronutrients are your fats, your carbohydrates, and your proteins. You need all three of them. You do 100%. Your body loves it, like runs on carbohydrates. The proteins in your body helps move everything it needs to each cell. And then your fats help keep you sustained throughout the day. So they're all three important. When you take, in my opinion, I mean, not everybody's gonna agree with me on this one, but when you take one of those out, like let's say you go keto and all of a sudden you go carb free, your body's got to run a whole different way. So it's gonna take a lot of time, and just want to like remember, keep it sustainable. Whatever you can do for 10 years, do it. And then micronutrients are wonderful little vitamins, right? Like it's the vitamin C, it's those kind of smaller vitamins that you're going to see in kale, it's vitamin D, it's all those good parts in leafy greens and your plant-based foods that are really going to help you, keep your body healthy. So it's all important. It really is. And I think, when I was pregnant, I remember at one point, like craving vitamin C. Like I was craving oranges like nobody. I could eat like 20 in a day. And it's because your body needs that vitamin C. So it's when it's building the baby, your body needs so many nutrients in there. So I do believe your body will tell you, like when you crave an orange, I believe it's because you need vitamin C. When you're craving milk, it's because you need vitamin D or protein or fats. Like go with your cravings because your body is going to tell you what it needs. So that's what, all those vitamins and macronutrients and micronutrients do.
I absolutely agree with that. And that was actually a question we got. Have you tried keto?
I have. Yes, I have tried keto and paleo. I ended up doing paleo and had the carb flu, they call it, when your body like switches from using carbohydrates to fats. I did it for a month. And then the day that I went and like had something off plan, like pizza or something like that, I ended up getting like an extreme case of gastritis and had to go to the doctor, and they thought it was like gallstones, and it was like the most intense pain I've ever had in my life because my body like was eating so clean, and then all of a sudden I put something unclean in there, and then my body just like was awful. So I realized, okay, so it did not work for me. It was not sustainable. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Some people, and they asked me if I did that. I have not done keto. Just to give a quick summary so we can put more spotlight on Christi, because I'm really interested in this. I think there are healthy ways and unhealthy ways to do it. And that's just like the best way I can summarize it for me. And again, if it works for you and you like it, power to you. Here's a question that someone mentioned. This is in the chat. Fusion of two. Thank you for your question. It says, hello, my question refers to motivation. I've seen a lot of TikToks about it, but it's been really hard to motivate myself sometimes to work out, eat healthy, etc. What do you guys do to stay motivated?
Yeah. So, for me, it's a part of my daily routine. So, like I said, sometimes like I put myself through a struggle during the day, and sometimes that's in my bodybuilding. I love to do that, but I also love to work out. It brings me energy. It's my time. I actually don't listen to music when I work out. I will either listen to like, YouTube videos on like a super inspiring person, or, Impact Theory is a great like channel I do. It's Tom Bilyeu who created Quest bars. Yeah. He brings in all these motivational people, and I like love those. So it's my time to grow myself. So I would ask you, how is your relationship with food? How is your relationship with exercise? Because if it's, oh my gosh, I have to exercise. Oh, I ate so much and I have to burn off what I ate the day before. Who would like exercise like that? Like I would hate to exercise if that was the only reason why I did it, and did that for years, by the way. Forced myself to do it, forced myself to work through injuries, forced myself to work out because, that was my identity. But if you're struggling to find the motivation and to eat healthy, I would just replace the word healthy with, how can I add in more self-care? So instead of how can I be healthier, how can I add in more self-care? How can I take care of myself better? How can I respect myself today? And I would ask yourself that question, because to me, that's going to hit on a deeper level. It's going to hit on a level where, think about it. If you have a dog, all right, some people treat their dogs better than they treat their bodies. They take it for walks, they give it water, they feed it, and they pet it and they talk nice to it. And how many people do that to their bodies? How many people look in the mirror and talk nice to yourselves? How many of you take yourselves for walks? How many of you feed yourself adequately, enough food? How many of you, drink enough water? It's all about self-care. So for you, my wonderful dear listener that just commented that awesome comment, I would ask yourself what self-care looks like for you today in this very moment, what you can do right now.
That's awesome. And just to address the fitness aspect of it, something that I bring up a lot is I do believe in the power of hard work and discipline. However, a lot of people who mention not having the motivation or the discipline and they think they're lazy, they may want to at least consider the idea that you might not be lazy, you might not be giving yourself the mental and the physical fuel that it needs. So just to use like an exercise as an example, if you don't feel like exercising ever, you may want to consider your diet and if you're getting enough rest. Because for me, when I do get enough rest and when I have my diet dialed in, I want to move. So you may want to consider that you're not necessarily lazy and unmotivated. You might be, I don't know, but you may want to consider that it might not be that, but you may want to give yourself the care that you need in order to excel in the way that you think you should.
Absolutely. Well said, Hamden. Well said.
No. Well, I'm finding it hard to keep up. You're doing such a great job on all these questions. Here's one. How do I minimize cravings during quarantine/boredom? And I know you've touched upon this before, but I wonder if your answer to this is different.
First of all, my heart goes out to you. I have had so many messages, people contacting me. This quarantine has affected us all very deeply. Even if you're not a frontline person, if you are, God bless you, you are amazing. If you aren't, I still think you're a frontline person. Like every one of us matter. You are an essential no matter what. And my take on this is if you've gained a little weight during quarantine, consider yourself lucky, because we are in a world pandemic right now. This isn't just something that, happened and it's going to go away. We're going to live this for the next year or two. Like we're going to live in a totally different new normal. And if you've been using food as a coping mechanism, I just want to tell you that that's okay right now. Sometimes it's okay to use food that way when things seem out of control. My only thing to say after that would be, watch that you don't make that become a habit. It's okay to do it every now and then. That you're just like, you know what, this is going to comfort me right now on those really extremely hard days when things are just going crazy. But the next day, it's okay. I don't want to keep this up. I don't want to make it a routine. I don't want to make it a habit to keep going for the chips when I'm not hungry. So I actually have, if you join my email list, I call it a hunger scale. And I use this hunger scale, and this helped me tremendously in the beginning of my journey, because like I said, I couldn't tell you if I was hungry or full. I didn't know what hungry or full felt like. Diets took over my life. And every time we diet, it takes away that trust within our bodies. It tells us when to eat, what to eat. And it tells our bodies that we can't be trusted around food. So if you download that hunger scale, and I have a blog post that you can click on how to use it too, it'll actually tell you, okay, so am I physically hungry? Am I biologically hungry? And if the answer is no, then I would ask yourself a deeper question. Okay, then what do I need? What am I using this food to try and cope with? So if I'm reaching for it and I say, okay, I'm not really hungry, but I'm reaching for this food, I always ask myself, what else do I need right now? A lot of times it's comfort. It's love. I need somebody to say something nice about me. I need attention, or I need to feel adequate. I often personally feel very inadequate. And I think people do as a whole. We just don't feel like we're enough. We think we're okay, but we're just not enough. And a lot of that stems with the overeating and the binge eating and the emotional eating right now that's going on. So I would download that hunger scale and definitely walk into those hard feelings. It's so hard to do, but to literally open up and say, what am I using this food to try and cover up, to try and numb? Because when we physically eat, it actually turns off or kind of hides, puts like some emotions in the back of our head so that we don't have to focus on them. So it takes them out of the spotlight of our brain for a little bit. But then once we're done eating, it comes right back into that spotlight. And so we eat again to try and move that. We don't want to walk into that pain, right? Like, we're humans. We always go for pleasure and try to avoid pain. We will always try and find the pleasure. So we find pleasure in the food. So that's where this can come in. It's usually so much deeper than just eating because you're not hungry. It's because you're trying to find something that you want the food to fulfill, but that food will never fulfill it. It's like putting a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. It'll never heal it. You actually have to go in, take the antibiotic. You have to see what's wrong. You have to physically go through that process of finding and walking into that hard feeling. It's hard.
Very well said. I like that. So the idea is not to apply a temporary ban, temporary fix, but again, find a long-term solution. The next question someone mentioned, and great, by the way, but I mean, we got a lot of questions, so I'm trying to go through them. Someone said, what can you recommend to lower or stop sugar intake?
So, depends. So personally, my question would be, why do you want to lower your sugar intake? And it would be, okay, so if it's because I heard that sugar's not good for me, you know, I would kind of question that and say, is that a made up belief? Is it a rule in our heads? Like, we can't eat past a certain time at night? Is it that, you know, one of those made up rules that we can only have fruit before noon, or, you know, one of those made up rules in our heads that we have to have almond milk instead of real milk? Because I would go off of what feels good to you. If too much sugar just doesn't make your body feel good, then okay, great. What else can you have? Is it processed sugar that you're trying to get away from? Does that not make you feel good? Could you have a sweet potato with peanut butter on it and honey on it instead? Would that make you feel good, or would that make you still think about that sugar that you really want? I guess there's so many deep layers to go into this that I don't really know how to answer it like fully, but I would definitely ask yourself why you're trying to run away from the sugar, because the sugar, I mean, sugar can be used as a good thing too. It's not always bad. So just an excess of it doesn't really make us feel good. So it's a little bit difficult. I'm sorry. I want to know more. Like, I just want to know more from this person and what they asked.
Well, we'll put your contact information in the description and everywhere I post this, so they'll be able to contact you if you want and ask you, and you can talk to them more in depth, perhaps. And that's another question that someone brought up real quick. Fusion of Two said they wish they could have been here at the beginning of the podcast. This is recorded. It'll be on Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere you can get podcasts, and it'll also be on YouTube. So no worries on that. No worries. Someone's asked, what is your opinion on protein needed to gain muscle?
Yes, I think protein's super important. So as a former bodybuilder, like, clearly that is my number one goal in every meal. I know how important it is, and even to sustain muscle. Muscles need protein. Like, protein is king in all of the diets and in everything. Protein is king. So however you're getting it, if it's plant-based, if it's through animals, if it's through powders, I do believe that you need an adequate amount of it. So for instance, I will tell you, like, today I was just craving cereal. Like, it's funny how most people, when they step into the food freedom world, like, their first thing is, oh my God, I'm gonna have a bowl of cereal. I'm gonna have a bowl of cereal. I'm so excited to have a bowl of cereal. I don't know why that is, but it was mine too. And now I couldn't even have cereal in the house because I would just eat the entire box. And now I can go up and I can take my pick and have a little bit. Sometimes I'll just have a little bit. Sometimes I'll have a whole bowl. But this, for lunch today, I was craving it, but I know that just eating cereal won't make me feel good afterwards. It won't sustain me and it won't keep me. So I rolled up some turkey with that, and I had some turkey with it. Sometimes I'll have a hard boiled egg too with it. It just depends on, what I'm craving at that point. But if you can, my biggest thing, and I love saying, because this is like one of my favorite things, but the biggest thing that I do is I don't ever take away anything from you. Like, I'm not going to say, like, if you go to somebody with a diet plan or a nutritionist or whatever, they might be putting you on some macro plan. They're going to take away calories. They're going to take away foods. They're going to take away things, that you love. My whole point in this is to add. So I tell my clients, add, don't subtract. So if you want to eat your cereal, eat it, but add some protein with it. Add some raw vegetables with it. You don't ever have to take anything away. You can always just add to it. So if you're looking to get more protein into your diet, there's so many ways you can do it. If you are vegan, my gosh, lentils are huge. Obviously all the vegans are like, hell yeah, that's amazing. Powders are wonderful. I use protein powder still. I use the trifecta. I use all three. But I do find that protein, like natural sources of protein, sustain me better than a powder does. But sometimes I want something sweet, so I'm going to go for the powder and put it in my oatmeal or something like that. So I would highly recommend lots of proteins. Protein is just, you use so much protein every day in your body for enzymes and cell movement, everything along that line. So it's wonderful.
Those are some very excellent points, and that was a very thorough answer. I will say that just to go in line with her and what you mentioned earlier in the podcast, that I think is sometimes for men, maybe more for men, protein is also put on a pedestal in their minds where you need a lot of protein. Guys, I encourage you to do some research on this. Read more than one study, because there are some people who recommend way more protein than you actually need, where they basically just drink protein powder. In my opinion, you don't need that much. And I'm not the most muscular guy, but there are guys way more muscular than me who have said that and agreed. If you need validation from them, you can look on YouTube. I love protein. I get it from my food. But if you're getting like, some people get like three or 400 grams a day for someone my size, it's a little bit too much. Just putting it out.
Hampton, I used to, before I knew about that, back in the day, in my early bodybuilding days, I would take in about 300 grams a day on my 5'2" frame. Yeah. Wow. So that was a lot. And it was a lot to do. And then ended up like coming down to actual, just like my body weight in grams when I was counting macros back then. So yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm glad you said that. That's a really important point.
And I kind of, because I don't want to feel bad by ignoring this person's question, but I'm trying to put the spotlight on you. It's a question regarding calisthenics, which I'll touch upon real quick.
Go for it.
He said, what is something you'd like beginners to know when starting calisthenics? I started at the beginning of quarantine and felt myself getting stronger, but it feels like I've plateaued. And this will be more specific. It won't be as inspirational, perhaps, unless you wanted to read into it, but it'll be more perhaps practical advice. When you're starting calisthenics, two things. One thing is I would keep it progressive. So most people, when they think of calisthenics, they think of push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups. And how they do this is they either can't do it or they can, and they just add on more. This is similar to going to the gym and thinking you can only bench press, like the only bench press that you have is 125 pounds. And if you can bench press 125 pounds, you just do more and more and more. And then you would have people saying, well, I can bench press 125 pounds 200 times. How many can you do? But no one does that. They move on. And I think body weight exercise, when you're training for strength and muscle, if that's what you want, is you should perhaps think of it similarly to how we would think of weightlifting. So when you get beyond a certain point, you make it harder. So if you can do 25 push-ups, 2 sets of 25 push-ups with good form, then I would move on to a harder form of push-up, like the arrowhead push-up, which is like diamond push-ups, except you're not making a diamond, you're making an arrowhead with your fingers. You can move on to uneven push-ups, and you can Google all of these names, archer push-ups, and keep it harder that way. That will keep you motivated. And that's something that beginners definitely should learn, especially if you can't do things like a push-up or especially a pull-up. Don't feel any shame if you can't do that. There are some people that are very extremely strong now, stronger than I am, that could never do a pull-up at first or do a push-up at first. They built up from that. And you can build up, just like you can move up, you can also scale the difficulty down. So instead of push-ups, you can do wall push-ups. Instead of pull-ups, you can do something called horizontal pull-ups. So you can start from there. If your joints are hurting, sorry, if your joints are hurting, um, it's never a waste of time to scale back the difficulty a little bit, because just because you can lift something doesn't mean it's what you should lift right now, because your muscles usually develop faster than your joints. And if you are getting muscle and you're getting stronger, but you're hurting, then in my opinion, you are making a fundamental mistake. Because again, we're just to link everything back together, we are pursuing health. We're not pursuing anything else. We're cultivating long-term health, not necessarily like having big muscles, not necessarily being the strongest person in the room. I advise, and if you talk to me, I always advise being healthy, functional, and strong beyond anything else. So that's my answer to you. I hope that helps.
Did that just relate so much? Like these two, like entities, just I mean, they're just so perfect for each other. They really are.
No, I like that. And I was trying to connect it back to what we were doing because I wanted to keep going with the theme because I'm actually really enjoying this. And someone just popped in and said, um, do you know of healthy eating based on body type, especially endomorph? Do you have an opinion on body types?
Yeah, so I've looked into this a lot, and I love, I don't know if you guys follow Dr. Nadolsky on Instagram. I don't believe in eating for body types. I just, unfortunately, I mean, personally, if it works for you, great. I think it's wonderful, but eating for your body type, to me, it's just basically another diet. You know what I mean? You're eating based on this factor here. And to tell you the truth, it's like putting everybody in 3 boxes. And to me, there's like a billion boxes we could all be in. Everybody's so personalized. And I think it depends on your sleep levels, your water intake. It depends on your stress levels. It depends on your mental state. I think that has so many factors that go into how your body processes food, how it digests food, how slowly or how fast it does. To me, those matter more than your body type, endomorph, ectomorph, you know, whatever it might be. I personally believe that there's so many more factors than to just put people into 3 different groups like that. You can train people differently. I mean, clearly the people that ectomorphs, right? Like they usually want to gain more muscle. They might have to do things a little bit differently, like back down on the cardio a little bit more and just focus more on weights and things like that. But as far as nutrition wise, I don't really believe in it. I'm sorry if that hurts anybody's feelings.
No, I don't think it'll hurt anybody's feelings. And you said that in a very respectful way. And forgive me if any listener thinks I'm ignorant based on this, and you can send me information on this. But I agree with Christi. I thought that was considered by some studies and some experts that the idea of body types may be a myth, or at least heavily misconstrued by the general public, as far as I know of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something to think about. I mean, I think it plays a role, but I don't think it's like the whole end all be all. This is what you need. Here you go. You're done.
Absolutely. I'll knock these 2 questions out in a row. Is there a huge difference between chin-ups and pull-ups? So chin-ups with your palms facing you, usually are thought to put more emphasis on your biceps, and pull-ups with your palms facing away usually puts more emphasis on your back. In my opinion, I would just pull yourself up however you can at first, and then if you want to experiment later on, you can. For me, there is not a big difference. They are targeted differently. Everything we do in an exercise targets muscles and purpose a little bit differently, but it is not a huge difference in my opinion. And I've done plenty of both. And there was, just in case anyone's worried, I train with pull-ups mostly, and I have no problem with chin-ups. I'm not neglecting anything. And someone who said, and this is actually related to what you were talking about, as someone who's really busy with work and studying for school, etc., though it feels like I don't have enough time to get a workout in, what's a good way to get myself in check to really be consistent? And I'll relate this to you in a moment as well. But for this, I would just say, like we were talking about before, I think discipline and hard work are very important. But if you're having trouble staying consistent, you may want to, 1, analyze your goals. Like if you want to work out to be skinny, or work out to be buff, or work out to be strong, not really so much like if you want to be skinny or buff, then you may want to analyze your goals, because for me, it's much more fun when the workout is progressive, when I'm training for something else. That's just for me, but you may want to consider what you really consider to be important. And for me, it's the progressive nature of some calisthenics where we can move on to a harder form of push-up. For me, it's kind of like a game in that sense. Second part is you don't have to exercise like she's talking about with diets. You don't have to do an extreme diet to be healthy. You don't need to work out an hour a day to be fit. I don't work out an hour. I don't even work out 30 minutes a day. I'm an active person. I move around a lot. That's just me. But if you want to give an idea, and this will be controversial, and if you're confused about this, you can DM me on Instagram. I would say that one of the ideal ways to gain muscle, one of the ways to gain strength and muscle, is you exercise like 10 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. You just lift hard, and that is actually a great way to gain muscle. You don't have to exercise a lot to gain muscle, because you think about what you're doing during exercise. You're just breaking down your muscles and your body in a controlled manner. You're breaking down your body in a controlled manner. When we actually so now as you think. Number two, keep it progressive. Number three, value discipline and hard work, but make sure you're getting what you need. Oh, can you hear me at all?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it just came in for some reason. It would like froze and then came back in right then. So yes.
No big deal. I think a little bit.
Let's see if this turns back on. I think we lost him. Oh. Good?
Yeah, I think we're good. I left for a second, but I came back. I don't know if you heard my last question, so forgive me if I repeat it. But I just wanted to relate that to you. If someone doesn't feel like they have enough time to get their diet in check, what would you recommend to them?
Yes. So, okay. Use that addition, right? Use the addition rather than the subtraction. But I would, I use this theory with my clients. It's called the marble jar theory. So let's say you have 3 marble jars, right? So you have your fitness, you have your nutrition, and then you have your self-improvement, growth. I think these are all things that we need to focus on. Like these 3 things will bring us a more rounded life, right? So things that we can focus on personally. Each day, like clearly you would want to fill your jar up with as many marbles as possible, but some days it's just not possible to, fill your entire jar up with marbles. So what I tell my clients is to take, think of it as like almost like a spectrum, and what's at least one marble you can pop into each jar today. It doesn't have to, you don't have to fill up your jar, but just one. So let's say, what's like the least thing you could do? Like you have to kind of mentally or physically make a list. So even with nutrition, it's like, okay, even if I eat 1 serving of vegetables today, like I'm just going to do that. Maybe that's like the thing that you can just always do. And make this thing like your least thing that you can do. Make it something that you could do at like 10 o'clock at night when you've forgotten to add that marble in. So even if you could just grab a handful of veggies that day and just, eat those veggies, if that's your goal to add in more nutritional health, then do that. And then what's your like most middle thing you could do? Like, you know what, I'm going to have what I call a core meal, which includes satisfaction and it includes nourishment. So by nourishment, I'm going to include those macronutrients, right? I'm going to include a protein. I'm going to include a carbohydrate, and I'm going to include a fat in there. But I'm also going to add in something that my mind is craving, some satisfaction. Maybe it's a bite of a donut, or maybe it's, a handful of M&Ms, or maybe it's a cookie. Maybe it's like the tiniest little thing, or maybe it's something big. I don't know. And then, maybe you're like the thing where I can add in all the marbles. Maybe that is like eating just 3 core meals that day, eating because I, wanted to eat because I was hungry and I was staying satisfied throughout the day. So what's like each day, put in at least that 1 marble. like, even if it's for working out, if you're having trouble staying motivated, like, think of that spectrum. So some days, like, the least thing I can do, it's foam roll for 5 minutes while I'm watching TV. Like, that's something I could do. I could do 10 squats before I get into the shower. Perfect. That's what I did today. And my middle thing, maybe it's I go for a walk. And then the most marbles I can put in that jar, it's like a full on workout that I do, right? So not every day is going to be a full on marble day. You know what I mean? At least put that one marble in. What's like the least thing I can do today to help me move forward in my goals? So that's kind of how I put it. Just know that every day isn't going to be a full marble day. Some days you're just going to have one marble in there, and that's okay. That's totally okay. That's more than enough, because to me, that's balance. As long as you're doing it 4 out of the 7 days, as long as you're doing it 3 out of the 4 months out of the weeks out of the month, you know what I mean? Like, do it more often than that. That's just like, to me, that 51% rule.
So you want to keep your expectations for the long term and realistic. You want to keep realistic expectations. Okay.
Yes. So have some days where you know that you're just not going to get a full workout in, and you know what, I'm just going to foam roll today for 5 minutes, and that's going to be good enough, because I'm still moving forward, I'm still progressing, and I'm still working on my goals. But some days it's just not going to be as important as going out with your family or doing this or doing that. You know what I mean? So it's not your identity. It's not who you are.
Right. And just to if this can put anyone's mind at ease, I do the same thing. I mean, fitness, this will probably eventually be my living in some ways, either side hustle or hopefully full bore fitness. And there are days when I don't even I don't own a foam roller, when I don't even do that. And I almost always choose going out with family and spending time with friends over my fitness. But that's another topic we'll touch upon, because my fitness plan is it fits in to my life. It enhances my life. It does not take over my life. So if that can offer anyone solace, that's how I view it. You don't need to worry about spending a large amount of time on it.
Now, Hampton, do you find that because you live like that, and I now live like that too, you almost want to do it more? Like, you kind of miss the days when you don't, but then you're like, oh, it feels so good to get back.
Oh, absolutely. And that's something that I eventually want to make a full video or on YouTube or TikTok about, is if we because I like exercise, but if we do it every day, we get burnt out on it, but if we tell ourselves, oh, we don't have to do it every day. And then I look forward to it, because again, we heal when we rest. When I do push-ups, I'm like, I can't wait to do it again next week and see how much I've progressed. So no, like that might be odd for some people, but I look forward all the time to when I can work out. I'm like, I can't wait to try pull-ups again, because we work ourselves hard and then we rest, and that's when we get stronger.
Right? It's like we got rid of that black and white thinking. Like, I used to think if I didn't get a full workout on that day, then it was ruined. The day was off and it's a cheat day, and I'm just going to have to, go back to some old bad habits, and it was useless. And now, like, just today, I didn't get my workout in this morning, and it was fine, but I still felt like I needed to move my body. So for like 20 minutes, I just went on my elliptical, and I was like, that's fine. That's perfect. Like, it doesn't have to be full out every day. Like, there's no black or white anymore. You can live in the gray.
Right. And I mean, just what Christi mentioned today, 20 minutes on the elliptical, that's more than I've done so far today. So you're already ahead of me. And just to put anyone's mind at ease, unless I've missed your question, in which case, please send it again. We will have time to get all the questions. And I think we'll wrap up in about 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, please send them in now. We'd love to get to all of them. Here's one that someone mentioned is, how many meals do you eat in a day? Do you believe in large or small meals?
Oh my gosh, such a great question. I think that's an awesome question. So I used to be a 6 small meals a day, because, that was how your metabolism, did really well throughout the day. And it was just something I believed. But now I find myself eating on most days. I eat bigger meals because they satiate me and keep me full until my next meal. So to me, that's my goal. Like, I just don't have time right now to keep going back and eating. Plus, when I do eat those small meals, personally, I don't feel full, and all I'm doing is thinking about food. And that is one, it's a symptom of hunger, is when you're constantly thinking about food, it means you're hungry. So look out for that, like those small signals, that like fogginess and headaches. And I personally start to get dizzy and I cannot stop thinking about food. Those are all hunger signals that mean you need to eat more food. So when I eat bigger meals, especially because I do work out in the mornings, think about it, your metabolism's going faster because you've just worked out. So your body's going to need more fuel. Like it's crazy that I used to think, like I used to get so upset, like, oh, why am I hungry again? I can't believe it. I just ate an hour ago. But that is, again, a messenger. Like that's something telling your body, hey, can we please get fueled because I'm hungry. We have things to do in here, and we got to repair. We got to, rebuild that muscle that you were doing, working out earlier, and we've got to feed yourself, and you're running around with the boys all day. So you better feed me a little bit more. So personally, I have gotten into bigger meals, and that's just what works for me. What works for you might be totally different, but I had to go through that investigative stage and just literally eat whatever I want, whenever I wanted, to get to this place, because I had to go through snacking all the time and realize that that just wasn't working for me. And then I had to go into eating 2 really big meals and realize that wasn't working for me. And now I eat 3 big meals, and sometimes I'll snack in between and sometimes I won't. It just depends on the day. So my advice to you would just be to listen to your body, see what it says, and know that every day is not going to be the same. Like if you snack all day one day, totally fine. And then the next day you're just eating 3 big meals, your body's eventually going to even itself out. Like if you ever eat like a lot one day and then the next day you're not really that hungry, like it's your body evening itself out. And especially if you're a woman, hybrid, oh my gosh, Hampton, I love how you touch on women and like PMS symptoms and things like that. You have no idea how helpful it is. And for some reason, I don't know if any women are watching, but it's like almost like better coming from him with his like just wonderful voice. And you're so sweet every time you talk.
Thank you so much.
Just like mesmerized. But especially if you are on your period, your body actually needs 15 to sometimes 30% more calories. So ladies, if you're hungry around that time, like don't fight it, go with it. Like I said, it's trying to tell you something. So do what feels good.
That's actually a great point. I do a similar thing. I usually eat large meals, two large meals. Sometimes it's 1, but again, that's depends on what I'm feeling. I don't restrict myself. But there are days when I eat 3 meals. Some days I've eaten 4 meals. So again, it does depend on the day. Oh, and for some people, I wanted to bring that up because that is a thought that some people have, and I never really. I knew there were studies that confirmed it or suggested it, but the idea that you have to eat more meals during the day to keep your metabolism up, again, there are some studies that suggest this, but I believe there are some now, and I personally believe it, for whatever that's worth for some people, that it wasn't so much how many times you eat during the day, but how much you eat during those meals. There have been some studies that suggest that is what affects your metabolism. And in my experience, that plays a bigger role because I eat large meals. I never feel like my metabolism is slowing down. So just to shed some light on that, if you're worried, you can do some research on that.
Yes. And another big symptom of a slow metabolism is low body temperature. So one of the things I was experiencing all the time when I was extremely lean and not fueling myself properly and overworking myself, I was always so cold. So if that's something that you're experiencing too, it could be a symptom of a slower metabolism, which if you're not fueling yourself properly, your basal metabolic rate will naturally go down lower. So, which means your metabolism's lower. So dieting long-term just is not good.
It makes a lot of sense. Someone says, as someone who's always grown up being the skinny kid with a lot of fat or muscle, wait a second. As someone who's always grown up being the skinny kid with a lot of fat or muscle as a start, would it be a good idea to go into a caloric surplus, 2,500 to 3,000, while avoiding junk food / food without much nutritional value, while maintaining a good and consistent workout plan? Wow, this one's very detailed.
Oh, there's so many factors that go into that. Like, if you're talking macro counting, height, weight, age, you know what I mean? Like that all factors into it as well. Your daily, how you move throughout the day, if you're more sedentary or if you have a job that you like lift a lot, or you're outside a lot working, pushing, pulling. There's so many factors that go into that. I can't like answer it off the top of my head. But if you're somebody looking to gain more muscle, then I mean, I would believe a calorie surplus would be huge for you.
And some people ask us a lot, is it possible to gain muscle on a caloric deficit?
This is like one of those fights that so many nutritionists have about this, but I personally believe that you cannot gain a decent amount of muscle without being in a caloric surplus. Personally, I believe unless you're a person of a larger size, people first dieting, maybe they're in bigger bodies. When they first diet and exercise and use strength training, it is possible to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. But as they start losing the weight, then that stops and it's either one or the other. So usually for people in larger bodies, that is possible to lose fat and gain muscle. But for somebody that's in a, I don't know. I don't know what you look like. I'm so sorry. I don't know your age, your height, your weight. I wish I knew more about it. But yeah, to me, if you do want to reach a personal goal, like by all means, you do you. My whole shtick is with people who think that that's their life and their identity. And that's what I help kind of release them of that. So.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I have a similar problem where people ask me some questions and I know they're actually trying to learn, but they ask me questions like, I have ankle pain. What do I do? I mean, that could be from a lot of different things. So at least for me, if you have questions that you'd like for me to answer more in depth about, please DM me on Instagram or find me anywhere on social media. Send me a message. Maybe not TikTok. I'm really behind on my TikTok messages, but send me an email or something on Instagram and I'll get to you. And I think Christi can offer the same thing. She'll be able to know more about you and offer a more tailored response.
Definitely.
Is it possible to lean bulk, just in your opinion?
Not as well as if you could to just bulk. So when you say lean bulk, you're walking that very fine line. I mean, you're gonna lose mass. You are you're gonna lose muscle, but how much of it depends on what you're doing, what you're eating, how much cardio you're doing as well. There's so many different factors that go into that. Personally, like I said, I believe in a bulking season, and then back in my bodybuilding days when I did that, I believed in a bulking season, and then I believed in a cut season. So I do it more old school. Some of these people now can talk about that, but to me, I lost a lot of muscle mass when I cut too. So it just I haven't heard many people kind of speak well about a lean bulk. So I think it's mostly about staying lean. If you want to go at your least amount of calories there for bulking, which would be in your macro coach, and that could help you out with that as well. So because there's ends to that. There's a high end bulk and then a lower end bulk of a calorie surplus that you could be in. And if you're on the absolute smallest macro level there, then you might be able to do it, but it won't be as great as a bulking season.
Great stuff. As we near the end of this, I know we've talked a lot about finding what's right for you and listening to your body and not putting food on a pedestal and really just tailored things, how everyone's different. So I know this is at the top of a lot of people's minds. Is there a tipping point? We talk about doing what's right for you. Would there be a point where you say you teach someone, you coach them to listen to their body, but they end up just wanting a lot of foods that, to use lack of a better term, unhealthy or bad, and they
Yeah.
end up causing physical harm to themselves in sense like obesity or high cholesterol. Is there a tipping point where listening to your body results in bad medical conditions that you would say, well, maybe you want to dial that back? And how would you address that tipping point?
So I work with usually two types of people. So mostly I work with the people that are underfed, overworked, like completely leaned out, that actually need to gain weight to heal their relationship with food. I and then I also work with people that need to, like, so I have this end, right, of people that have so much self-care that we kind of need to take it back a little bit. Then I have other people on this end of the spectrum that I work with that need to add more self-care into their routines. So again, one of the reasons why, like, somebody asked me the other day, why don't you just offer your course without coaching? And I'm like, because I mean, I could, and I could make honestly a lot of money off of that. But as much as like I just want to help people, and I know that helping you, everybody is so different. So going through this, people are going to have different experiences, and I want to be there to catch you when you fall, and I want to let you fall. Like, this is the thing, I want to see you fail because I want to know where you're struggling. Your failures are going to bring out your growth, and when you fail and get back up, you're going to show yourself that you can do this, that you can walk through this. So to answer your question, Hampton, a little bit better, I do believe there are times to add in more nutrition, more nourishment. And then I do believe there are times when we need to add in more satisfaction. My goal is to combine the two somehow. There's an imbalance there. There's usually too much nourishment and nutrition, or too much satisfaction and not enough of this. So we're going to find those levels. So with the people that, you know, are scared that they might gain weight in this or start becoming unhealthy, like on this journey, and this is why I believe athletes and nutrition, fitness people and professionals and lovers, we have the upper hand at this because we know how to eat healthy, right? We know how to fuel our bodies. We know what feels good in our bodies. So my only thing is, like, let's see where this falls. Like, let's play around with this a little bit. And I do work with people that you know, are looking to still, like, they're worried about their weight gain becoming too intense. And it is great because they do obviously work with our doctors and people like that to make sure blood pressure's okay, and everything too, which is wonderful. But it won't, I'm not going to say it won't get to that point, but I haven't worked with anybody yet that it has gotten to that point. We've always neutralized it because to me, it's not, there's an underlying issue there. Like, it's not really about the food. There's something else. And that's kind of what I tackle. So we go deep in, fix from the inside out rather than from the outside in.
It makes a lot of sense. And someone followed up. This is the person. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought this was the person who asked the question before, but it's someone else. This person says, it's weird because when I was in school, I was gaining weight and I was eating less than I am during quarantine, but now I eat more and I am losing weight. Any thoughts on that?
Could be stress too. Stress does weird things to our bodies. Like, even if, you know, life just isn't normal right now. Things are so weird and they're so out of control. They're out of our control. And I think that kind of sets us into like some stress hormones too. So I do believe this pandemic has a lot to do with people's bodies, their relationship with food, their relationship with themselves, their mental health. I do think that might have a lot to do with it too. So Hampton, unless you have anything else you want to add to that.
No, I think that really covers that. I think that's stress is probably a great point. And again, there are a lot of factors that it could be. I mean, you might have a parasite. I don't know. I mean, hopefully not. But I mean, stress is a very good thought on that, I would say. So look into that. Here's something I say for the very end. What song would you say sums you up best?
Oh my gosh. So I'm such a nerd at heart and I love it. So when I don't listen to like inspirational podcasts and self-improvement things on YouTube, I listen to classical music. My
Okay.
favorite song, like, out of any, this is my dog barking, out of anything in the entire world is Suite for Cello #1 by the Piano Guys. And I love Bach does it too. He did the original. But that song, it has no words to it. But if you ever listen to it, and if you listen to it, you've heard it before. I know you have. Like Google it and you're gonna be like, oh, it's that song. You've heard it on commercials and things like that. But that song, I think, speaks my entire life. Like the ups and the downs. And it can honestly like just make me cry. Like it is one of my most favorite songs of all time. It has so much emotion in it. And I'm just like, I claim that as my song.
Is that your favorite classical piece?
Yes, it is. It really is. There's so much to it, so many levels. And it literally tells, I go back in my life and I think of all the ups and the downs that I've had, the really deep, dark places, and it like carries me back up. It's just like, it's amazing.
Huh. That's a really interesting and not something I would have expected. Something with
I
no
know,
words.
I know.
I like it though. I like it though. My favorite classical piece is Pachelbel's Canon. I like that.
Ooh, yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
You like classical music? Do you like opera?
You know what? I haven't gotten into it much, but if somebody has any good pieces they could send my way, like I'd totally be interested. Like I love like Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven and oh my gosh, all that. I'm just into like really, I don't know, like cool pieces. And I like how they're like mixing it with what do you call it? Like Lindsey Sterling type music right now too.
Yeah, pop kind of.
Yeah, kind of like with the electric cellos and the electric violins. And cello is my favorite, absolute favorite instrument. I don't play it, but it's, oh my gosh, it's wonderful.
I'm not someone who can claim to be very well versed.
My dog is barking. I'm sorry.
No, okay. So, you can probably tie it out, hear it. Nessun Dorma. That's the Pavarotti was known for. O Sole Mio, and Der Hollerach. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And the last one is a soprano piece. All of them are very, very famous, and those are my favorite ones.
Oh my gosh, that is so. Yeah, send them to me. I'd be totally interested. Sorry, I spilled water on myself, so I'm just like, hey.
No, it's okay. I'm kind of surprised I haven't done. I usually wear dark shirts during podcasts just in case I do that.
That's so smart. I'm just learning so much from this. Yeah. Well, send me that piece. I'd be totally interested in hearing it. I listen to classical music when I lift too. And it's like, it's empowering. Like if you get the right pieces, I think it's on my YouTube. You might be able to find it. I made like a playlist and it's all like upbeat, like really cool stuff. So
show everyone your shirt. What does it say?
Oh my gosh, with the water stain on it, right? It says, "The badass woman in me honors the badass woman in you."
I like that a lot.
If you guys do, I talked with a company and they gave me a code. So if you want like 15% off or something and want to get it, just DM me on Instagram and I'll send you the code. I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, I love this shirt. Like my whole goal in life, I just want to empower people. Like confidence is not a personality trait. It's something that you like just build and you have to work on it. And I don't think enough people realize that. Like Hampton, you starting this podcast, like how scared were you your first one? Like just getting everything done and doing it. It's scary.
I don't want to discourage anyone. I'm pretty extroverted. I wasn't scared.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I am less scared now. I am more confident now, of course, now that we have more.
So it took me 2 years to do my first Instagram live. 2 years. I was thinking about it and I just couldn't do it because I was so scared of what other people would think of me. Like my confidence, and everybody's like, you have like the best body confidence and the best, because I live in a bigger body now. From my leanest, I've gained 35, 40-ish pounds. So I am in a different body. I'm in a new home and I had to accept this home, that this is where my healthiest, sustainable life lives. And honestly, it's empowering to me to know that. And it wasn't at first, like, believe me, I had to do so much like self-work in here, but that's what I teach women to do now. So
I think you absolutely should start a podcast or video podcast, audio one of some sort. I think people would love that. And you get to you meet so many interesting people that way. And I think a lot of people would really resonate with that. And I really do think, even if someone doesn't necessarily agree with your entire message or some parts of your philosophy, I think that's a very valuable message that you can spread to the world. It's kind of so wholesome, like the idea of that some people don't pursue it because they think it's almost cliche. And then it's so wholesome that people think it's cliche, but it's actually very important because I'll tell you now, as someone, I'm still teeny tiny on a large scale, like compared to like, like PewDiePie, whatever. I'm still very, very low tier on the internet scale. But just from the people that I've noticed so many people have not experienced enough love. I don't mean to be cliche, but that's what it is, to where they're freaking out. And I just put my hand on them and say, it's okay. And then they look at you like they've never heard that before. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do this more often. So yes, kudos to you. And I really hope that you spread your business. If someone were to want to reach out to you, where should they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So my website, www.intuitivelystrong.com. You can go to my Instagram. I post like everything on my Instagram is there. I'm on TikTok. That's where I found you, Hampton. And yeah, join the email list. Like, you'll never miss a motivational moment. Like, I am here for you. I respond to every email. I respond to every comment. I just want to help people. I want to help people get out of this hell.
So intuitivelystrong.com. I will mention that if you have a VPN, and a lot of our international audience does, it may say forbidden. So if you disable your VPN, then you get to our website because it's working well. I checked it today.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we sign off here?
I think that's it. I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here. It's such a pleasure. I'm just like beyond honored to be here with you and to speak with you, and just to have everybody on here and commenting and, listening as well. Like, you took the time out of your day to come here, and I just want to say thank you. Like, you're so appreciated.
No, thank you. You're the one. It's my podcast. You took the time out of your day to come here and educate me, and I've learned a lot. And I mean, just from time alone, this is, if not then one of the most educational podcasts I've done. So thank you very much for coming on. I had a lot of fun and I learned a lot. I wish college could have been like this for me. Thank you to everyone for joining. We are going to sign off here. I'm going to sign off the recording first, and then we'll end the live stream. So here we go. Okay, the recording has stopped. Thank you to our entire audience. We're no longer recording, but everyone on YouTube, thank you so much. And if you have any questions that we missed, please DM me on Instagram or contact her at intuitivelystrong.com or her on Instagram, and we will be happy to get to you. Thank you so much.